Africa. Enjoy Africa's compelling,
exciting,
and breathtaking
experience
with Kakaaki,
the African voice.
Thank you for staying with us, and we are right back. We are joined again by our second guest, like Tsunami earlier said, by Oge Funlola Modie, MD CEO, NOIPolls. Oge, thank you for making it finally.
All right, Dr. Ihua, you're in the middle of a sentence. We're talking about the tools that are best appropriate in collating data for the national conference.
That's right. The various tools that can be used. We have used our telephone polling approach to conduct our polling. We can also conduct face-to-face surveys. We can do ethnographic works. We can collect focus group data. There are various techniques of collecting data. But the whole idea, as I said earlier, is that NOIPolls is a platform where the voice of the ordinary man or woman can be heard. In time past in this country, we had a situation where a few people can gather in a room, call themselves G12, G24, G36, and come up with certain decisions and say, Nigerians want ABC. But through NOIPolls, we provided a structured platform which is scientific in nature, where we can collate the voices of ordinary Nigerians across this country in a credible manner and produce that information in the public sphere.
All right, let me come to Oge. He told us briefly exactly what NOIPolls is in brief. And when you look at the generics of polls across the world, even in Africa, it's not something that's really very common. And a lot of people also sometimes doubt the authenticity of such things, because then you have a divergence of people living in different communities, their outreach programs, and how to even give them the orientation on what the polls are really for. Now, talking about the methods he has spoken about, we've seen the advent of social media. Well, of course, Social Media Week, just went by, and I saw that you were very part of that. How do you begin to work it into your strategy? Because, of course, we're in a time when people are always on their phones and their gadgets.
Okay. First of all, opinion research is something that's relatively new to the continent. However, it's needful because, we've come of age where people need to express their opinions about certain things that impact on their everyday lives. So whether it could be policies, it could be consumer products, or anything at all. So it is relatively new. You do have, in situations where people sort of doubt or question, but we all know that with change, people need to just adjust. So we keep pushing our awareness, and one of that is using the social media platforms like you mentioned, and pushing that awareness because people need to be able to have deeper conversations. So on social media, people are arguing or advocating for maybe women rights or child rights or abuse against children or pedophilia, rape, that sort of thing. So they need data to be able to deepen that conversation. So that's why we're pushing the awareness on those platforms. We're pushing the awareness even when we speak on the phone with our respondents for them to understand what opinion research is about, simply because we need people to start deepening their conversations and using evidence-based research to sort of support advocacy, support policy making, and support product development.
All right, still on you, Oge. Now, I'm wondering how long you've been doing this, and what has been the response of both government and the citizens, the people that you're trying to reach with what you do?
Okay, we've been 7 years at this. We turned 7 in February, so we're pretty excited about that. 7 years of polling, a partnership with Gallup. Gallup is our technical partner. They have, sort of the methodology has been adopted from Gallup, which is the premier polling organization in the world, and adapted to the Nigerian context. So for 7 years, we've been pushing this. Now, over the last 2 years, it's become more in the open space. A lot of people are hearing more about us. And so people are starting to use, for instance, the media, starting to use information to support content. People across the third sector are using what we bring out to support advocacy. So we do have like the policy advocacy unit where people come, help us do this, do a fact-finding mission, put together a fact sheet, a policy brief, and help us advocate on this issue. So people are using that. The government, because we're not an advocacy platform, we prefer that all the stakeholders around where that need to push government to do what they need to do would use our data to do that. So what we tend to do is that if we put out something on health, we try and put it across to the stakeholders. So CSOs that are involved in healthcare, even the ministry, we send our stuff there, to the senior special assistants, to the different people that are stakeholders in that sector. This is information we got out of this poll. It will be good for you to use this. But it's not in our place to push for that. And that's why we keep promoting the awareness of evidence-based research to support advocacy or policy making. So I think that it's catching on. In the last 2 years, the media, even people, even on social media, a lot of people, we have a lot of people retweet when we release our weekly polls on Tuesdays. So it's catching on, and we're quite happy about that.
Okay, let me come back to Doctor. Talking about the national conference, let's coming back to that. A lot of people have said so many things. Some are for it, some are against it, and that's to be expected because not everybody will agree with an idea. And when you come to polls and tracking, I understand there are different ways of tracking down, samples. Again, you look at the tracking polls, you also look at the benchmark polls, and you also look at the bushfire, which is some of the maybe earlier on, to look at how to analyze it. But what about sampling errors? Do you ever encounter sampling errors, and what are the margins, and how do you decide what is truth and what is ambiguity?
Okay, yes, we do encounter sampling errors. As Oge said, we have adopted a methodology from Gallup, who are the world leaders in opinion polling, and adapted that methodology to the Nigerian context. So, first of all, the tele-density of Nigeria at the moment, NCC made us to understand that we have over 150 million lines. Of those 150 million lines, NOIPolls has access to 70 million lines, GSM lines in the country. So our population sample, which we pull from, is robust. It's a deep representation of the entire country. Now, for the issue of sampling errors, we have plus minus 3% sampling errors. This means that if you go to the field, conduct a face-to-face survey, the same pattern, the same survey instruments, you get the same responses plus or minus 3%. So, despite these minimal sampling errors, they are still representative of the nation. They are robust and they are credible. So advocates, public sector organizations, policy planners, and business development officers can also make use of this data to support their work in various ways.
So how do you deal with I get a lot of phone calls like that sometimes, and people just call you and they want to know, and it could be a bad day, or it could be a time that you don't want to be asked certain questions. How do you deal with people like that?
You see, we've been polling for 7 years now, so we've passed through the teething period of polling, so we know the usual questions. Typically, in the past, you call and how did you get my number? That's the first, question that comes. And even when you explain, they say, of everyone in Nigeria, why me? So, I mean, we get these questions, and you're even calling, and someone thinks this is a 419 call, or we need to be careful. So, I mean, our pollsters are trained. We've got NOPC, which we call the NOIPolls polling center, a polling center with 20 functional pollsters calling the country every day, speaking in the local languages, Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Pidgin English, and calling. So we know how to handle people, and I should also point out that it's a choice. So if you don't want to participate, you'll be left out. It's for those who are willing to participate.
Okay. Now let's come back to the national conference, which is on Monday. I did ask earlier what exactly you have done in the area of the national conference. What kind of data have you collated so far? What kind of opinion research do you have, and how would it help the national conference? And of course, if that report or that research result has been presented to the organizers of the national conference.
Okay, we've done 2 polls on the national conference. The first was last year in June 2012, when there was some sort of call for a sovereign national conference then. So we did a poll asking Nigerians, are you aware of the call? 82% of Nigerians had never heard of a call for a sovereign national conference. At that time, that's
82%.
June. 82%.
What figure did you poll?
1,000. We always do 1,000, but this
people.
time I think we did slightly above 1,000, so 1,200. So we wanted to find out, first of all, the awareness, and that's what we do with our polls. So even before we drive into, everyone is educated about what the particular poll is. So the awareness was very low. Even those that were aware, yes, they were in support of it. And again, they said it will foster unity, it will foster peace, that sort of thing. And they thought that President Jonathan should support the call. At that time, it was just a couple of people that were calling for the Sovereign National Conference. So this year, once that had been proposed, we thought we should do another poll, February. Slightly above half, about 56% were aware of it. So it gotten better. So probably it was now much more in the public space. Then we went on to ask all respondents, explaining what the national conference was and asking them if they were in support. 88% of adult Nigerians, remember we poll 18 and above, were very much in support of the national conference.
88%?
88%. And that was a huge, huge number, because now there was an awareness and then an understanding of what it was about. Again, the push was that it will foster unity, it will foster peace. It will be good to come together around the table and sort of promote the unity of Nigeria. I'll try to link this back to when we were doing the centenary poll. We did that last year, again, to just find out if Nigeria should be one or should be apart. And again, majority of Nigerians lent their support to Nigeria being as one, and that we can do better as one than as apart. And that was a huge number. I think it was about 70% and above. So what we've done with this was release that. But also we have this, what we call information briefs, which like one-pagers, which we hand out. And we'll put that, so that we put that out last week across across Abuja, so people can at least have an idea. Have we presented it to the organizers? No, we haven't. Again, like I said, we're not an advocacy platform. We give out data. What we are, a research management or a knowledge company. So we give out data, and we believe that those that are in support and can use this data then can use that to the organizers.
The 88% of those who agree to, 56%, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, they're aware.
They're aware,
Yes.
okay, but 88%
Are
in support
yes.
of the national
Yes.
conference. What about their own opinion as to the issues that they would like to see discussed during the national conference? Was there any poll?
No, we
any
didn't
research
ask
on
that question. The question we had asked was, why are you in support? So that's why they said it will foster unity, it will bring the country together, and then we can discuss the issues that are pertinent to us. One of the things that we had asked that we thought was important, that what groups of people do you think should go to the national conference? In terms of the highest of majority, you have first, they said the religious leaders should be first. Then you had the second highest, traditional rulers. Then the third highest was the CSOs, before they even started talking about political parties and the rest of that. So those three key groups are most important to Nigerians to be there at the center of the national conference before any other group. That's what came out of that.
Okay, let me come to Doctor now. I don't know if you know what is called the Bradley effect. When you look at the American political balance, you look at that they use a lot of polls, especially for their elections and campaigns. And coming back to Nigeria, I asked you earlier about non-response bias, and I want to ask you about the response bias, where the reflections or the answers of the person you're calling does not reflect their true attitude or consent to that question, especially when you talk about racism or rape or sexism. You find a lot of people saying things that they don't truly mean, or giving answers that are wrong because they do not want to express or give away a certain, answer. How do you deal with that? Because that's a huge challenge.
It is indeed. I absolutely agree with you. We conducted a poll some time back on child labor. And we found out that in the process of conducting the poll, quite a number of calls were hung up, and simply because some of the respondents were also liable to child labor. They had children at home doing work, or they had children out of school selling things. I mean, these are ordinary Nigerians. So we have that. But you see, it's a scientific process which we have gone through. We have what we call our CSI factor, our credibility, the scientific nature of our polls, and the integrity, the independence. So the credibility has to do with our alliance with Gallup. I mean, you can only learn from the master, and that's what NOIPolls have done by learning from Gallup. our credibility also in terms of our founder, our credibility also in terms of the team that's managing. Then S for scientific. So it's a scientific process, a methodology that we have adopted, whereby sampling errors are taken care of, whereby we wait. For instance, the population in certain states like Lagos and Kano can skew the results for the southwest, and Kano can skew the results for the northwest. But we have techniques for weighting, whereby we wait, and Lagos State or Kano would not skew the results. So there's a whole methodology, there's a whole process that it goes through. We have pre-polling stratification, we have post-polling stratification. We have also randomization of the numbers. So we are calling numbers down to states and down to local government. Okay. So in our 70 million database of numbers, we have numbers that are stratified down to local government. So we have some clients who come to us and say, we are currently working on a project and we want to track the opinion of Nigerians in a certain local government, and we do poll for them. So these are techniques, there are techniques, scientific techniques that we use to work on margin of errors, to weight and to randomize and stratify in a way that will bring out results that are representative to the nation.
Okay. All right. Add a bit to what he said.
Okay, go ahead.
We want to get to a place in the political space where people or political parties start to use our polls for the good of the nation and development, but we're not there yet. So the truth is that we do not poll for political parties yet, because we want just that information out there to be used as is, and independent, which is what he's talked about, the CSI. So we'll poll only on things that are pertinent to the Nigerian people, election polls that are important for people to see what Nigerians expect out of government, and then allow them to use that to support manifestos, support policy making, but not that we will, because we need to remain independent and unbiased in our reporting.
All right, talking about being independent and unbiased,